What I'd like to do is just give you a bit of a background as to our beginnings, where we've come from, and hopefully where we're going in terms of both business, brand, and product development, etc. You may have seen this building. It's actually now located in St Fagans in the Natural History Museum there. Ogmore Bakery established the company in 1945, and it was as a result of the current, or the owners at the time of the Gwalior stores, the Llewellyn family, which decided that they were going to offer the opportunity for each of the departmental managers to buy that part of the store. My grandfather, this young gentleman here, or little gentleman, he took the opportunity of taking that offer. He was the resident baker at the Gwalior stores, or Gwalior Supply Company, since 1936, I believe it was, having served in the First World War underage, probably like majority of those young lads did. Came back, wasn't permitted to go back into the Second World War, obviously, because it was a protected position. So essentially, the business started, or its foundings were from this store, and we are now to our third generation, of which that's both myself, my brother, and my sister. We've manufactured in Bridgend as a county borough. We were obviously up in the Ogmore Valley originally. We moved down to Abergaru, Bryn Menyn, in 1968, if I remember rightly. I was only a year old then, so I probably didn't remember much. But we set about, or my grandfather set about developing the business from that period onwards. The business, as it was situated in Gwalior, too small, needed to expand, and he took a very bold move in 1950 when he took the opportunity of opening his first retail outlet. Retail was sort of still very much in its sort of infancy. A lot of what was done was sort of horse and cart delivery around the valley, so very much door-to-door delivery. Probably gone a bit full cycle when you think about it now. When Tesco delivered to your door or Amazon delivered to your door, it's sort of going in full circle. So he took the opportunity of taking a store in Bridgend, the entrance to the old market as it was then, the Rue as it is now, and set about entering into retail, which ultimately meant that was the end of door-to-door delivery. Retail was the new phenomena. It was the new bag in terms of business. And from that, he grew, or we grew the business, both him, my father, his brother and his sister, to a business that at one time had 14 retail outlets, and our main emphasis was manufacturing at the back end with a retail front end to the business. Your typical high street retail baker, artisan products made today for today's sale as well. So, but that's changed, which I'll come on to very shortly. We still retail, but not through 14 retail outlets anymore. We now only have 2. Again, I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly, why. But those 2 are in Cowbridge, and we've also got one at the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend. What has changed is that our products are now available not only throughout the UK, but also throughout the world. We have embarked on a major program of export, and we are currently distributing, obviously, through the UK, USA, Middle East, and quite a few countries throughout Asia at the moment. One thing you probably don't see on there, which I'll reflect on shortly, is there's nothing in Europe other than obviously the UK, and again there'll be the reason as to why. Currently we employ 30 people across the group, 10 of which are actually in our manufacturing operations, so we're actually quite a small producer in real terms, but our ambitions are large. One thing we do have is SALSA accreditation. We're not a BRC accredited company at the moment. I'm sure we will move towards that in due course. But SALSA does allow us to deal with the larger multiples, such as we deal with Waitrose. We don't deal with Tesco's, we don't deal with Asda, we don't deal with Morrison's, and we don't deal with Sainsbury's. And I'll tell you a little bit about why we don't do that as well. So, but that's just a little sort of potted history about the business. Just to sort of give you a little bit of a flavour as to how the business developed and sort of expand a little bit more on what I've just said. As I said, traditional artisan bakery, flour confectionery, bread, savoury products, basically everything that you could possibly want from a bakery shop, we manufactured, produced, and did it to a very, and still do, to a very high quality and standard. And that is one of the key points that we've kept throughout the business, is that quality means everything. Quantity doesn't necessarily deliver you profit at the end of the day. Probably delivers you more of a headache than anything else, to be quite honest with you. As mentioned, our initial distribution of product was done by the horse and cart, door to door. We opened our first retail in 1950. And one of the proud things we had, we actually were one of the first companies in Wales, bakery companies, to actually open a retail bakery with a tea house or coffee shop within. So Costa copied us, Cafe Nero copied us. So we've been doing that since 1972. That was long before Costa started. However, they've obviously created a brand which is now very dominant within the industry. Again, further outlets were opened throughout the Vale of Glamorgan, Cardiff, Swansea. So we covered the whole area of South East Wales effectively. We opened a flagship store in 1984 in the St David's Centre, which was an absolutely roaring success until I shut it in 1997. And one of the reasons for that, and this is one of the reasons why we've moved away from retail, is because of the infrastructure costs that are required to support it. Just to give you a reflection, in 1984 when we opened that flagship store, our rent at that property was £25,000 per annum, with rates of probably in the region of about the same. So it was about 45,000 just to sort of be situ in Cardiff. At the time in 1984, quite a lot of money. But of course, the style of shopping, the style of custom, the environment that was within Cardiff, administrative offices, etc., basically we had a footfall which would effectively support that. In 1997, that was very, very different. Rent was now £250,000 per annum. Rates were £70,000 per annum. So before you actually even opened the shutters, before you even paid anybody, put the lights on, we had to clear £15,000 a week in selling bread, savoury and other products to be able to sustain our presence within Cardiff. So I shut it, as you could well imagine. So, and that's how retail has changed, and I'll emphasise a little bit more about it as well. So again, grew to 14 stores, we're now 2. And then come 2004, so obviously we'd realised that Cardiff was no longer our sort of opportunity that it was back in 1984. We did very well out of it during the period. We also had an in-store bakery within Howells of Cardiff as well. So we served all the local, all the department stores, David Morgan's, Howells, and so forth. And again, you just look at the retail space in Cardiff. David Morgan's is gone. Howells is run by an external catering facility. So all of those all those features changed, which effectively forced us to change our business. In 2004, I saw a major problem on our horizon. One that would potentially put the company out of business, and that was predominantly because of retail. Retail, as we all know, we do enjoy the convenience of going to supermarkets, whether it be Tesco, Aldi, Lidl, whomever that is, whatever your choice or combination of. It meant that the convenience of actually going to the high street to buy a product it basically is started to wither, and it's still happening. You know, you only have to look at the centre of Bridgend. We had 6 businesses in Bridgend 10 years ago. We have 0 now, other than our business that we have manufacturing in Bridgend. So we've got no retail presence other than the hospital at all in the Bridgend area. But that was our founding ground. So we saw the need to change our business. If we were going to be able to carry on the Ogmore Vale Bakery brand, to be able to sort of deliver we knew we had to change. And it was quite a dramatic one. Quite painful too, actually. And it was the first major restructure of the business within 50 years. So it was a bit of an untangling of what my grandfather had done, which was a bit of a shame. It was a very emotional time as well. So we decided that our focus was no longer going to be on retail and manufacturing. It was going to be more shifted towards the manufacturing arena. And at that point, we decided to sell our plant, we decided to sell our equipment, we decided to cut our retail estate in half, which meant that that had an impact on our employment base. We let go over 100 staff with 40 years plus service, massive upheaval, made redundant. What we let go was in excess of 150 man-years of experience and skill, which you'll probably never be able to replace. And that's another reason for talking to you today as well, is the reasons why. We did maintain, and we have still got, key personnel retained within our business because we also needed to see the delivery of knowledge transfer down to new beginners, new starters, etc. But that is probably one of the key problem areas that we have now as a business. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour about our products, we produce probably five key categories as I would see it. One thing that you don't see there is bread. We don't manufacture bread anymore. We haven't done so for 10 years. We were a business that was very much geared around bread production. We produced probably, and I would stand here and be argued against, that we probably produced the best bread throughout Wales, probably one of the best throughout the United Kingdom, and we were recognised for that. But unfortunately, the demand for it wasn't there. People changed their eating habits. The cheapness that you could buy sliced product, the convenience product that came into supermarkets meant that that was no longer a viable product category. And then you might say, no, well, actually, it's come back again. Yes, but the investment that you now need to reinvigorate that is considerable. So we chose the flour confectionery route. So we've gone down the area of fruited cake. So we create a range of fruited cake products, which we'll have some on the back there to try with your tea later. We produce that in various form factors, from slab pieces, like you see in the corner there, to sort of individual slices, to squares and fingers, all servicing different types of markets that we go to. So whether it be things like food service, so those people like Casachal Foods, or if we go to distributors that then put them into other retailers, we have the product but served in different form factors to serve different areas. We do novelty shortbread biscuits. This is probably one of our key areas. This is a football that we've just done for the World Cup. Those are all handmade, and in fact most of our product is still very much handmade. We have got some level of semi-automation. We also produce a range of frozen thaw and serve products, so things like Belgian brownies, shortbreads, various other products, again targeting the food service sector, but also with a focus on natural products, so no preservatives in it, no artificial colours, no GM, we don't use GM full stop, but what we call clean label, so it's no preservative, no artificial colours, no additives. Then we do celebration cakes, still a prominent part of our business in terms of delivering celebration cakes, be it wedding, birthday, or any other type of celebration. And of course, we've still got our very strong presence in the Welsh fair market, such as Welsh Cakes, Tish and Lap Barabryth, which we service through our own retail, Waitrose, and other parties. That just gives you a bit of a flavour. Workforce development. Well, obviously, changing our business has needed us to change, including me. And sort of just to give you a little bit of background about me, I suppose. My origins aren't from the food industry. That's probably a good thing in some respects, bad in others. I must have been mad to come into it in the first place. I don't know yet. I'll tell you when I've made some money. But the main thing, when I came into the business 18 years ago, that was the opportunity that I came in, took the business on and started the change process. And during that process, we have done numerous programs for workforce development from Skills Growth Wales, which we took advantage of, which was very good. That allowed us to sort of pick and choose types of development that would assist us in achieving certain goals. One of those was to gain accreditation. So that allowed us to put everybody through food safety training at all levels, from level 2 right through to level 4, which I have for food safety and manufacturing. And it also provided us with the ability to get this accreditation to enable us to sort of enter into new markets, such as the multiples and so forth. Part of that development has been through technical. This is a huge area now that's required within the food industry, and it's all changing again in November. You might have seen, if you're involved in food, food labelling is changing in a big way. Particularly there's more emphasis on allergens, where you have to now declare what allergens are actually in your product. So whether you're actually manufacturing it or even preparing it within the kitchen, so whether it be your product that you've got on the back with your ingredient list on, or your menu, you must now, from the 1st of November, I believe it is, declare what allergens are potentially within that product, or definitely within that product. So there's a whole area of technical development that's been going on there. Big thing that's sort of coming into the industry now and becoming more and more prominent is the nutritional analysis of all products. And you've probably heard in the last couple of days about fizzy drinks and sugar and everything else, and about taxing it and everything else. So nutritional analysis and finding methods and ways of actually changing the product to reduce those types of additives or ingredients is becoming more and more important. Shelf life. Shelf life is important. Not necessarily for the domestic market, but it's very important for the export market, where your product is probably going to be on a ship for a month, it's probably going to be in a logistical chain for another month, and effectively you've then got to provide that end user or, with the ability to consume that product as fresh or as good as it was when it was made. So shelf life and development, technical development is also very important. Organoleptic. Just to explain really what that is all about, is actually making sure that people understand what the product should look like, what the product should taste like, what characteristics it should have, and making sure that that quality chain is part and parcel of it. And all of this is sort of building into the workforce development, which is not only from just having a technical manager, but it's actually down to the person making it on the shop floor as well. Artisan skills. Big problem area, big problem area, particularly in the bakery industry. Knowledge transfer is great as long as you've got people that have got the knowledge to transfer it in the first place. And as I said, from our changes that we made 10 years ago now, 150 man-years of skill were let go because the industry, it wasn't in demand. We couldn't sustain it. Now that's changing. Everybody wants bread again because they like the idea that can't remember her name now, British Bake Off lady. She, basically, that's a big promotion. James Martin, another, all these celebrity chefs are now sort of promoting the virtues of good bread and so forth. So bread is becoming a flavour of the month again, but it still doesn't sort of justify investing significant amount of money into that at the moment. So we have a significant gap in the training and workforce development for the bakery skills sector. And probably this is where I might be a little bit controversial at the minute, because one of the things that we've been presented on numerous occasions over numerous years are NVQs, where people will come in and actually undertake an assessment of the individual in the workplace. Personally, and again, this is my view, an NVQ is ticking a box to say that somebody's done something. It's actually not telling you how to do something or training or giving you that information to deliver. And if you think back probably 10, 15 years ago, Wales probably, it did have, in South Glamorgan Institute, I think as it was called then, it had the biggest bakery school in the UK. Full, could never get in there. Doesn't exist anymore. There's a food technology centre in Cardiff Metropolitan, which is great when you're talking about technical, but in terms of actually being able to engage with an individual to explain how the crumb of a bread should be, or what a dough should feel like, and sort of give them those sort of, I suppose, chemist skills to a large degree, or scientist skills to be able to sort of say that the product is right or wrong. You can tell it's burnt because it's black, but you know, can you tell it if it's sort of partly brown? Is it baked in the middle? How do you do that? Part of knowledge transfer, but also part of training somebody how it all works and how the chemistry of the product works together as well. And a great thing, we've just done something recently with a savoury cracker producer. Couldn't figure out for the life of it why they couldn't get life on their products, and it's a product that should have 9-12 months on. And they're an artisan producer, and it was a very simple change to the process. They had a lot of liquid in their product, so basically what they were doing is they were putting the flour in the bowl first, they were mixing it, adding the butter, and then they were adding the liquid. But what you should be doing is completely the reverse. You add the liquid, and then you add the solids into the product. And again, I'm no baker, but and I'm not going to attest to how it was fixed. But what it did allow us to do, it changed their product. It still delivered the same output, but it gave the product the shelf life that it needed because the method changed. And that was only done because we have the skill base in place. But, as I said, that is actually disappearing. And that's where we need to try and engage, and hopefully with colleges and other parties where we can actually encourage somebody to open a bakery school again, or perhaps they could use us as a bakery school, because I'm always looking at new channels of income. So that would maybe another opportunity where we could work with the education sector and private industry in bringing those together. We do deliver customer service training, very, very key as part of our retail, but also very key as part of our telesales operation and managing things like customer complaints. I'm gladly to say that we don't have that many, but when we do, it's being able to actually engage with that end user and make sure that you diffuse a potential issue that may exist and try and engage and make sure that you're attentive to that customer at all times. So customer service is actually very, 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 very key. Still needs a lot of development in our business. Can always engage in improvement. You know, and I would, and as I always do, if somebody makes a complaint, you know, if it be service or otherwise, I'm always glad to be able to respond, because that, if people don't tell you that things are wrong, you're never going to fix it. So that's very important that we do. Food safety, mandatory obviously in our business. We train to level 2, 3 and 4 food safety and manufacturing using CIEH. But obviously we don't have to do that. As long as we train that employee commensurate to the duties that they're going to be performing, that satisfies the law. We go above and beyond that to make sure that the person does understand why. And the food industry, I suppose, is quite difficult in a lot of respects. Maybe something about like farming and the horticultural side of it, or the agricultural side of it. Possibly things like selling a pair of shoes is actually quite easy in the retail sector, because you can leave the shoes on the shelf at the end of the day. You don't actually have to monitor the temperatures of the fridge. You don't actually have to do, because the shoes aren't kept in the fridge for starters, but at the same time, you're not actually forcing that individual to understand what has to be done. You know, keeping food on a hot counter, you know, making sure that's not less than 63 degrees and making sure it's not more than 2 hours on the hot plate. So making sure that those procedures are being followed, you understand it and why, and the whys and the wherefores. And I suppose food safety training is quite difficult in some areas, because when you start talking about microorganisms and various things such as the various infections that you can have, like Campylobacter or anything else, you know, sort of the average person, unfortunately, standing behind the counter in a food shop is probably thinking, I wouldn't even know how to spell that, let alone say it. But obviously the key thing is actually, well, how does it actually appear within a food, and so on and so forth. So that's more important. So we undertake a number of induction training for new starters. Then I've looked at things like essential skills within our business. Numeracy and literacy is imperative. Get a recipe wrong, the product's wrong. Fortunately, most of that is automated, but at the same time, there is a level where, depending on temperature, like today in the bakery will be an utter nightmare because of the humidity in there. Things will not set, such as icings, or they'll take longer to set, should I say. There's too much moisture in the air. So again, learning about that, educating individuals about that is something that's missing within the sector at the moment. ICT, I think that's the sort of the buzzword, is it, or how people use it. I just want to be able to have people that can use Microsoft Office and actually be able to switch a computer on. And that's actually a big problem, and we've engaged on that. We've had voluntary workers come in that have left college, claimed that they've had degrees in computing, can't even use an Excel spreadsheet, don't even understand how to put a Word document together. Their literacy is poor because they're talking text speak and not using proper English language. And emails are probably one of those biggest things where people take the shortcut and shortcut their message, whereas realistically we've lost that to some degree. And that's one of the areas where we're actually doing the international trade at the moment. That is essential, it's important. Because when you're talking with people in Japan, they are so precise. They are so on their game in terms of making sure that your presentation is right, and looking at things, looking at the quality of what you're actually producing. And if that's not reflected either through an email, through a telephone call, through follow-up, whatever, you won't do business with them. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So that's where we think a lot of workforce development areas that we have as a business, particularly in the artisan skills, and we would welcome the opportunity to work with a college to support that. Use our bakery as a facility if necessary. How do we recruit and select people? Well, we don't do a lot of recruitment because I've said the people that we have working with us now, the ones that I unfortunately had to let go 10 years ago, our average employment period at the moment is 22.5 years. So our retention rate is not bad. So people might say that, oh, I don't like working for Ogmore Bakery or Bert's Biscuits and Cakes. Oh, you've been here for 22 years, so what's the problem? So recruitment and selection is we do very limited amount of it at the moment, but that's changing. I'm currently servicing sales, marketing, finance, and everything else that you can possibly think of in terms of trying to develop and promote the business. I'm doing that myself, and I'm doing that, believe it or not, on a worldwide basis at the moment. Hence the reason, as I say, I'm off to New York after this. So I need help, but I'm looking to try and find somebody or people that possibly from graduates that are there, enthusiastic, want to learn, be ready to sort of come out from a college environment, have the knowledge, but be able to apply it and be able for me to do the knowledge transfer of how you apply it within this particular sector. So we've engaged on Jobs Growth Wales for the 18 to 24-year-olds, so where we need help from possible things like Careers Wales and the other providers that are giving support to Jobs Growth Wales is assisting these guys to sort of say, this is how you actually come and talk to him. This is how you deliver yourself at an interview. This is how you support yourself in terms of engaging with a potential employer. Because from my point of view, because I've got such limited time, I'm going to discard that person. They may be excellent, they may be superb, but I'm not going to give them the opportunity because they haven't given me a good impression of themselves at the outset. We've used online recruitment capability we've just used indeed.co.uk, the website there. In all fairness, that has actually proved the most successful so far, and I've only took that up about 6 weeks ago. We advertised 2 positions. We've had over 700 applications, which we've sifted through. We've actually employed 2 people as a result of that, both graduates from college, which is actually very pleasing. And most importantly, they've got enthusiasm. That's the one that really came across Doesn't matter whether they've got the skill, because we can hopefully give them that skill or train them. It's whether they've got the enthusiasm to sort of to be involved. We recruit through Job Centre Plus, local advertising. We advertise through our retail chains, various other parts. Our selection process, obviously we do interview. We also do competency and capability tests. So if somebody has said that they've done bread making or flour confectionery making else, okay, well, let's do a little test for us, just show us. Give us, here's your opportunity. And, if they pass that, that's even better. But most of all, the one thing that I'm looking for, and that doesn't matter whether that's an 18 to 24-year-old, it doesn't even matter if it's a 50-year-old. If they've got the enthusiasm to want to come and do the job, that's good enough for me, because I can do the rest for you. Part and parcel of our process, a lot of the workforce development and training and so forth. Behind all of that, there's all this product development that's going on. I've mentioned about our markets, and it may be product development that we're doing that's got existing products within it. We might be just doing variants of a product. So for example, this one here, you've probably seen, this is a Viennese whirl. As a variant to that, we've done a lemon zest variant of it. We've also got a ginger one, we've got a lemon zest one, and so on and so forth. So what it's actually doing is creating a range of product. So you're not actually moving away and actually going off and developing brand new products. You're actually tweaking things and adapting things to work. Different form factors. So I'd mentioned about slices. We deliver this cake in a loaf form. We deliver in a slice form. We deliver in a square form. So it's actually being able then to present the product to different market channels. Seasonal products are a very big thing for us. I mentioned about novelty shortbread biscuits, as you see on the box here. We do everything from Valentine's, Halloween, summer biscuits, Christmas biscuits. So we focus on all these different areas. And again, the one thing about that, this is where we need the artisan skills to do the finishing and the development of the product. Very key. But we're also developing products for the international markets. And one that we've just done, it's actually going on an Emirates flight this afternoon. This is a Ramadan biscuit. This is for the Middle East. We've just sold 40,000 of these products into the Middle East. This is for Ramadan, which starts today. So that product there is just a variant of our novelty shortbread biscuit. But what we've done, and the big thing, and one thing that I've mentioned here about product development is packaging. Packaging is an essential part of any market that you're working in outside of the UK. Unfortunately here, unless you're actually buying a very expensive gifting product, cake product, if you go to Tesco's, you're quite happy for that, because that's £1. You're probably quite happy to pick that up. In a Japanese market or a Middle Eastern market, no. You've got to sell the virtues of that product. Chinese, this actually sells in the Chinese market. This is Chinese packaging. So it's again adapting and developing. There's lots of international product development that we're doing. We've got another celebration, which will be Eid Mubarak in the Middle East. We've got White Day in Japan. We've done things in the US with Halloween, but they tend to focus on candy and sweets there, so it's a bit of a different product. Another big area that we're doing is retro product development, where we've actually taken products that you probably used to buy 10, 15 years ago and bringing that back to the foreground. So it's bringing that into the arena. And again, with the things like the Viennese whirls, building in the packaging, using our heritage photographs as part of our packaging process now. So these products will be launching in September with this new packaging on. We're actually adding a little bit of a strap line to it as well, but all part and parcel of the opportunities that we have as a business to offer kids that are actually graduating and wanting to come into something that's vibrant and development. Because I can't keep doing it on my own anymore, unfortunately. Big part of what we do now is international trade. And I'll just tell you a very quick story of how did we get into international trade. It's because of ASDA. That's why we got into international trade. I talked about not dealing with supermarkets. We were going to do a work with ASDA, and I got nothing against the supermarkets. But we were developing a product range that we were going to launch in on St. David's Day 3 years ago, I think it was, yes, 2011. We agreed the price. They got me on that one. We went up to Leeds, spent 8 hours in the car, came back, had the phone call the following morning. Writer said, you had me on the price, you got that extra penny out of me. Right, how much can I confirm now as an order? How many pallets of product do you require? 30 cases, of which I went silent and said 30 cases per store or 30 cases? No, 30 cases as a whole. This is 45 stores in South Wales. Footfall at Swansea, 250,000 a week. At which point I said, thank you very much. Phone me when you've got a proper order. I can sell 30 cases through my own 4 outlets as they were at the time. The following day, a bit of a deja vu moment, I suppose, had an invitation from the UK Food and Drink Exporters Association. £100, come and meet the buyer in London, January. Yes, I went along, paid my £100. 6 buyers, agents, retailers that I was introduced to. Out of that 6, I got 50% hit. We delivered to 3 retailers. One in the US. This is where we broke into the US market. We launched 16 products into the US in 2011. Up from that £100, that delivered revenue in excess of £75,000. We're in over 400 stores across America, and that's across the whole of the USA. It's a slightly seasonal environment for us at the moment, but we're working on that. That's why I'm going to New York tonight. But it just gives you a reflection of the different markets. UK, there's a lot of questions as to whether or not, do I really want to bother with that market anymore? Because we're challenged about the price. Nobody's really interested. There's no value in the product. People don't value the product like they do in the international markets. And I'll explain a little bit about that, about Japan now. So we started in exporting in 2011. We did an initial run of 16 products. We knew we weren't going to deliver 16 products then after, but it was a trial. But since then, we've been year on year in America. We've been growing at 14 to 20% per annum. This year we've grown by 14%. It's come down a little bit because of the dollar. That's now at $1.70, which is crucifying importers in the US. But it's also allowed us to embark on a number of programs with Welsh Government as part of the Food and Drink Wales export program. I've been to China, I've been in Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, just recently come back from Korea, Middle East, USA, which I'm obviously in again tomorrow. And out of that, I've been doing this now for 3 years. Exporting is a very different market. It's a hard process, hard program. But when you actually get into that market, it is something else. You've created a relationship, not necessarily about the product, but it's about you and the company. It's very, very old-style business school environment, which is, I love that, because it means that you can engage properly with somebody. They appreciate what you have as a product, and you can engage with that. These markets that we've gone into, USA in particular, the Middle East, we only launched in the Middle East in end of November last year. Since then, I've got a shipment going out today. So we're having to air freight it because we've got to get it there. We can't wait. We've got to wait for ocean shipment. Since November, we are on our 15th repeat order into the Middle East. I couldn't say that. That one customer in the Middle East, my distributor in the Middle East at the moment, within 3 months, he's outgrown 2 of my UK distributors. And we're talking in September of actually not moving from pallet movements to container movements, which will be anything up to 20 to 40 pallets a month going into the Middle East sector. And we haven't even touched Saudi Arabia yet. So the opportunity is great. The challenge is funding the damn thing at the minute, but that's another story and I won't bore you with that. But our challenge and our opportunity there, where we want to change our business, and this is why international trade is so important to us moving forward, is in 2 years I want that to be 20% of our business. We're actually probably do that within a year. Within 4 years, I want to be at 40%, and within 6 years, I'd like to be at the envious position of being in a 60-40 split, where 40% is within my UK European market. I mentioned about getting into these markets, and I go back to the technical element of it, the workforce development. Entering into these markets, it's great being able to create the relationship and doing all the sales work. That's probably one of the easy bits to do. One of the hardest bits to do then is you've then got to re-review all your labelling. You've got to check all your ingredients. You've got to tell me, for America, for example, don't have E-numbers. You have to translate that. You've got to be sure that your E-numbers that you're using can be used within the US. Have they got to be certified? So there's a whole raft of new requirements, all of which we need support and development on. And all of this I've been learning myself. So if anybody wants any knowledge about food labelling in US, Japan, Middle East or otherwise, then I'm your man. I charge a lot now though, mind. But in Japan, for example, we were just launching there 6 weeks ago. I've got a pallet still stuck in quarantine of fruitcake. They've questioned potassium sorbate, which is a preservative in the mixed peel product that's in the product. And they've come back to me yesterday and said, sorry, you're not permitted to bring it in, which is obviously quite devastating. But at the same time, we know that's a learning curve we've picked up. We've now got to replace that product with, or we've got to try and source the product first that doesn't have this preservative in. But it's the first country that we've actually bumped heads in terms of food ingredients. But it just demonstrates how pernickety some of these countries can be, rightly so. Because if you look at the obesity level in Japan, there isn't any. So it's a very, very different market. And this is just an example of some of the shows that we've done. I was with Owen Paterson in Shanghai last year, the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry. This was in Japan. This was in China, in Shanghai. I was very fortunate to be presented in Japan to 6 of the key major department stores throughout Japan back in March, which are the key driving forces within that food market. And the wealth of information and the development that we're doing in this area, or particularly I'm doing, is enormous. But the one thing that we're actually doing, we're getting results. We're actually delivering into these markets, apart from Japan at the minute, but we will do. But these markets are hungry for our products. China is also hungry for our product. It's getting it into China is the problem. Tariff structures, which is another thing you have to learn about for export. It might be well selling it from the door here, but when you get it into China, it could be a 30% tariff on it, plus it could be 10% sales tax on it. So by the time the importer's got it, he's got to add another 40% of the price he paid to me at the door. So it's then trying to make sure that your product does fit that market and it can sustain its sort of presence. And that's really where packaging comes into play.
Have you tried Australia?
We haven't gone that far yet. My wife will not permit me to go to Australia unless she comes with me. And John will be an attestament to that, because she works with John. No, we are looking at Australia. It's a bit of a duopoly in Australia, actually, because it's Coles and Woolworths that actually control that supermarket arena there, although Aldi and Lidl are actually having a big impact down there at the moment. But it's an area that we are looking at, but I haven't actually managed to venture that far yet. I'm on a leash at the moment. So, but we have, the Asia-Pacific region is probably where our biggest opportunity is. Europe, as you see, I haven't actually mentioned Europe anywhere in this. Too much competition in Europe. There's probably too much austerity in Europe at the moment. We used to supply into Dunnes stores in Ireland back in 2011. And I was in Shanghai at the time. Had a phone call from the buyer at Dunnes saying, sorry, I've got to cancel my Christmas order with you. I had 6 pallets waiting in storage ready to ship him. He said, unless you can offer me a sale or return or a bog-off type deal, we can't do anything. It's when the crash started in Ireland, at which point I said, well, I can't ship you. I can't ship it. I can't ship it across and bring it back if I can't sell it. So we managed to resell it. But that market is now starting to recover. So we're going back into that now later this year. but that's the effects that it can also have. So Europe is not on our radar. That's pretty much me. I hope I've given you a bit of a story. I could probably rabble on for another hour, but I don't want to bore you too much.